Shalom. All praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakodash. The double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who rule well. Peace and salutations to the elect. My name is Ainal, and the title of this video is Joel chapter 3 and 2 is at the door. All right, Joel chapter 3, verse 2 is at the door. And ultimately, in this video, I'm going to play this dude, Canadian Prepper, who mentioned something that China said. And, basically China will, so we'll get into it, as the video plays out. Right. But what I'll get here first is just Joel chapter 3. So, Joel 3 and 1, it says, the subtitle there says, the nations will be judged. It says Joel 3, chapter 3, verse 1, for behold, in those days, in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. Now, this captivity here is going to, a gathering back, right, which happened and is happening now, pursuant to Ezekiel 37. It says, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, right, which means the Lord's judgment, all right, and we'll plead with them there, and that's the so-called Middle East, the Levant region, over there near Israel, Iran, Saudi, and all of that, where it's going down right now. It says, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Right, pursuant to Ezekiel 36, these devils went up in our land, right, and they parted it. Right, they're fighting over it. They're fighting over it right now. And this is the controversy of Zion. All right, that the Lord is visiting these places. I believe that's in Jeremiah. Let me grab it real quick. All right. Bear with me, Salakia. Actually, Isaiah, which I actually have it already, which I was going to get later, but I'll get it right now. Right, it says Yahweh's wrath against the nations. All right, Isaiah 34. The point I want is in 8, but I'm gonna get these scriptures here because I really was gonna get 1. Right, Isaiah 34 and 1, it says, come near the nations to hear and hearken, people, let the earth hear and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. Right, and once we play this video, you're gonna see that he's basically saying that it's going to have to go down. War is going to have to happen, right? It's inevitable, meaning it's basically unavoidable. It says, for the indignation of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them, he hath delivered them to the slaughter, and that the deliverance of that slaughter is going to happen in Yahweh Shaphat, where he's going to judge them. Right, in the great war that's about to take place, which is World War II. It says, their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down, as the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a falling fig from the fig tree. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven, behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, and upon the people of my cursed judgment, the Edomites, the so-called white man. All right. All right. Verse 6, the sword of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai have a sacrifice in Basra, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. And the unicorn shall come down with them, and the bullocks with the bulls. And their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust made fat with fatness. Ultimately, America is going to be obliterated. Also, the land of Israel is going to be obliterated with nuclear missiles from these nations that's about to come up against her because they're fighting each other. They're fighting over land. They're fighting over resources. All right. It says, "For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance." Right. Lord being Yahweh. Right. His son name is Yahweh Shah. So Yahweh Hashem in the name Yahweh Shah. In the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. Right. Who are the Israelites? Well, hiding who the Israelites are, pretending to be the Israelites. And all of this is all about everything that has been done to us, right? Even plans made to, future plans that they want to do to us, trying to make all of us digital slaves and all of that. All right, I'm going to play like 6 minutes of this.
This is your World War III update. Okay, so what is World War III and what is Day X? I've had a revelation, and I'm going to share what I've discovered with you today. Every so often I have a bit of an epiphany, or I just reevaluate things in a different way that is a much easier explanatory model to understand the geostrategic chessboard. And it's very simple. In fact, it's a very binary thing what's going on in the world right now, but oftentimes it gets overcomplicated. It's very simple, and I'm going to try to explain it to you today, and I guarantee you're not going to hear this perspective anywhere else. Everything that you're seeing right now is essentially a war on China. Now, many people are kind of familiar with what I'm talking about in that respect, but there's more to the story. Why is it that every single day we are seeing a Russian oil refinery go up in smoke? Who is the primary benefactor of Russia at this point in time? Who are the ones that are basically keeping Russia alive financially? It's the Chinese. Were it not for the Chinese buying Russian oil and gas and various commodities, the Russian economy would be in the hurt locker. And even the most bullish of Russia bros will tell you that much. Now, when you attack a Russian oil refinery with a NATO manufactured drone that is routed through a Ukrainian proxy that leverages NATO ISR to target deep inside Russia to destroy their port, oil, gas, infrastructure, pipelines, petrochemical facilities, you are essentially attacking the Chinese. You're attacking the customer. Okay, now China has benefited up to this point by low prices because Russia has had to sidestep sanctions and leverage their shadow fleet, for which China tends to utilize. But now that the actual infrastructure is being destroyed, there is possibly going to be not enough supply moving into China. Now, we're going to get to why Vladimir Putin hasn't attacked Kiev yet, and it's going to surprise a lot of people. Why is there a war in the Middle East? Who's the main benefactor of Iran? It is China. Who is the main benefactor of Venezuela? Had that Maduro raid not gone well, we might well be in a hot war with Venezuela. They got lucky there, which emboldened them to do Iran, and which likely would have emboldened them to go further into Russia if Iran was successful. Now, each one of these theaters, whether it's the country with the largest amount of oil reserves in the world, Venezuela, or whether it was Iran or Russia, it's all a war against Chinese access to energy. Whether it's the deal that was being brokered with Indonesia, with the Malacca Strait, in an attempt to position the Americans along all of these critical maritime choke points, all of this is a war on China, all right? So when the United States creates a situation in the Middle East, and I'm still convinced of this, and I've yet to hear anybody else echo this same theory, that they're intentionally keeping the Strait of Hormuz, that the United States wants the Strait of Hormuz closed. And when Iran almost refused to close it, what did they do?
Right. What does the second Ezra 15 and 16 say? Because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. All right. So keeping that closed, because what they're trying to accomplish is going to trouble the cities. Because the lack of resources coming out of the strait.
Slap their own blockade on it. They want the Iranians to fight with the Gulf states. They have no qualms with the Saudis and the Iranians and the Gulf states wiping everybody off the map, because ultimately what it comes down to, exactly what Xi Jinping invoked when he met with Donald Trump. It's the Thucydides trap. The rising power is a threat to the established one. And so if we can commit the
Okay, right there. You know, that trap that he's talking about. This is what China said. China said, lay down and take it. China said, Anakin, it's over. I have the high ground. Right? China said, get down or lay down. China said a lot when they said that. So as you can see, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but you see on my screen here, it says this trap, right, which is aimed at the God, is an international relations concept which argues that when a rising power threatens to displace an established ruling power, the resulting structural stress makes violent conflict the rule rather than exception, right? So that's what's happening, which is very interesting. China winning. The scriptures talk about how, it's going to be Russia that comes down with the missiles, and many people join with Russia, but China's actually winning, not militarily, but financially, right? Even China is propping up Russia too, so the Most High is at play because China can't go down because Russia can't go down, all right? Because the Most High, Yahweh, pursuant to Ezekiel 38, is bringing Russia back, right? And he's saying, and he just said that if Russia or China was to, basically stop, it'd be the Russia bros that say it's a bad time for Russia, basically. So China can't be brought down, right? So what's going to happen with America feeling like it's losing, facing against these people that can't be brought down? War, the origin. The term was coined by Harvard political scientist Graham Allison. It is named after the ancient Greek historian who observes the Peloponnesian War and concluded it was the rise of Athens and the fear that this instilled in Sparta that made war inevitable. So war must needs be, right? It must happen. It's going to happen, right? That's what he's saying here. And that's what China said. When Trump went over to visit China said, look, let's not follow this path. You already see what's happening. I'm here, right? This is just how the dice got rolled. And Trump is not going for that, right? They're not going for that. These people much not going for that.
The economic sanction option, which is, yes, destroying the Gulf states, creating a sovereign debt crisis, wiping everybody off the map. Because ultimately what it comes down to, exactly what Xi Jinping invoked when he met with Donald Trump. It's the Thucydides trap. The rising power is a threat to the established one. And so if we can commit the economic sanction option, which is, yes, destroying the Gulf states, creating a sovereign debt crisis in the Gulf states, which is going to ripple throughout the world and likely bring down the global economy. I think that the people in charge in the United States believe that when the dust settles, they will still be the best position to weather the coming storm. Because at the end of the day, if the Middle East is in turmoil, if Russia and Europe are in a nuclear war.
So, hell yeah. And the Most High Yahweh Bashkin is gathering the nation, as I read in Isaiah 34. But here's Revelation 16 and 13, Armageddon, what demonology was so happy about. It says, and I saw three unclean, like Revelation 16 and 13. And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, out of the mouth of the false prophet. You got the Roman Catholic Church, right, which is false prophet, the beast, America, the dragon, basically Rome. But let me, it's like I got my Bible packed up. It says, just want to make sure that's right. Right, the mouth of the beast is America, the false prophet, Roman Catholic Church, right, and then you got like, the dragon, which is Rome. I could be saying that wrong. What I'm gonna do is after I upload the video, and I get it, I'll put it back if I said that incorrectly. All right, but it's it's like this system. You got like the NATO, right, America, pushing forward this war. But it's the Most High Yahweh Bashar Shah working on the spirit of these kings. So yeah, as I said in the next verse, right? It says, verse 14 says, "For they are the spirits of devils working miracles which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of that great day of Yahweh Bashmi Shah Almighty. Right, so that's what's being prepared right now. That's why you have Russia, Israel. America think they safe, they're not. Yeah, because what is it? Jeremiah 50:45 says, "At least you'll fought when we draw them out." So you got Israel, and you got America, right? You got Iran, you got China, you got Russia, you got these the Armenian raging Iraq, right? First on to the second over 16. So all these Ishmaelite nations joining forces. So you got all of that. It says, "Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, and he walk naked, and they see his shame." All right, so keeping your garments is this wisdom, this knowledge, and understanding, right? The scriptures, right? And he gathered them together in a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon, right? Armageddon, right? Which is a mountain of troops, right? A lot of troops. This is Revelations 11:14. It says the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe coming quickly, right? And that's what's brewing.
And the United States is really the last man standing, whether they have the high end, because at the end of the day, if the Middle East is in turmoil, if Russia and Europe are in a nuclear war, and the United States is really the last man standing, whether they have the high end semiconductor fabs or not in their possession, they have all the resources and they have Venezuela. So at the end of the day, they're separated by all of this chaos and commotion by two oceans. And so the reason now why Vladimir Putin has yet to attack Kiev, and the reason why he's going to meet with Xi Jinping in just a few days before the long weekend, which is typically when they're going to, if they're ever going to reinitiate hostilities, it's likely going to be then in Iran. I'm referring to when Israel and the United States are going to restart the war in Iran. Vladimir Putin is going to meet with Xi next week before the long weekend. The Russians always have good intelligence, especially when it comes to big maneuvers. And they were the ones, in fact, who advised the Iranians to be careful about a potential ground invasion, which may well be what had thwarted or caused the United States to defer that plan. Remember when Lavrov had cautioned that there was information and intelligence that they had that the Americans were getting ready to stage a ground invasion in Iran? Well, that could have been what actually caused that whole plan to be postponed, for all we know. But the Russians typically have good intelligence, and that's evidenced in the fact that on several occasions throughout the war in Ukraine and Russia, you've had officials in the Russian government, particularly the Ministry of Defense, contact Washington and notify them that they knew that Ukrainians were about to do some sort of false flag event, and we're warning you that if you do this, we're going to have to take a nuclear response. Now, the reason why Vladimir Putin has not attacked Kiev, why? Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. Without Europe, or without Ukraine, Europe dies. Without,
So and pretty much that's what I watch. I want to do this real quick, but hey, Joel chapter 3, verse 2 is at the door. Things are moving quickly, and he's saying Russia is now about to meet with China because he believes Russia has some inside information about what's about to go down. Right, and ultimately it leads to World War III, right, which leads to Jacob's trouble, which leads to them, which leads to our salvation. Our Lord, when you were edified from the lesson, shalom to the whole elect, which consists of men, women, and children, shalom.